to give them hope that all is not lost, that after coronavirus, there will be life. And by God's grace, it's going to be life abundant, the kind of life that our people will enjoy. And then to let them appreciate that the people they have elected to lead them, light. And to tell Lagosians that at this crucial time, this crisis time, we should be our brothers' keepers. We should look out for one another. Call your neighbors, tell them not to give up, tell them to cooperate with the government, especially in this lockdown, on this lockdown directive. The disease that we are fighting, it has no vaccine, it has no medicine. The only bulwark against it is social distancing, is staying indoors. And I would like to implore Lagosians that they should continue to obey the directive of the federal government to stay indoors, and that they should realize that in this crisis time, the government is with them, and the government is not going to leave them alone, and the government has not been sleeping. It's been doing all the other things that it is supposed to do. And on this note, my colleagues who are here, all of them, they will brief you briefly, about what they have been doing to keep government running, to keep government busy, to do the business of governance the way it should be done. That's why the crisis, because if it is only during the time of crisis that you really know people who really have their hands on the plow. And on this note, I would like to welcome all of you to this session, and one after the other, in no particular order of seniority or whatever, the commissioners will be coming to brief you on what we have been doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. So, the first to be called is the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Honorable Sam Egube.
Good afternoon, members of the press, my colleagues, members of cabinet. It's nice to see all of you from the war front where we've all been engaged in this past week. Basically, it's clear to us by now that we are faced by a global health pandemic. It's also clear that with the pandemic, it's an economic headwind that is coming, and by nature, economic headwinds which usually outlast the health pandemic. Crude oil prices are coming down. There are supply chain challenges. You have demand and supply side challenges. This is all resulting in the drop in output, and therefore a drop also in the revenue of both the state and also of citizens of Lagos State. In line with this and in line with the Mr. Governor's commitment, we are battling both of these challenges headlong with the intention to win. It's our resolve to provide significant leadership, right, to ensure that we outmaneuver and navigate ourselves through the challenges that are coming, that has both come and are coming upon us. We are implementing a strategy to ensure that the economic headwinds, even though it promises to be very daunting, that its impact will not be devastating on both the state and on its citizens. We are proud, and indeed very proud, of what we have always believed, that the spirit of Lagos lies in its resilience and our ability to pull together through difficult times like this. We've done that in the past. We are doing it again. One of the main challenges that faces us economically is the challenge with the poor and the vulnerable in our midst, which as a people we must always look out for and ensure we protect them. And thankfully, the government, together with well-meaning corporates and organizations and the people of Lagos, has risen up through their contributions and through direct engagement and input from government to just ensure that the poor and the vulnerable are being met with food distribution in a palliative manner today. We are also happy to say that the food markets, the special food markets, are also operating with limited operations in various places so that the economy does not ground to a complete halt. And so you are able to, with limited assets, also be able to get things like food, because food security is a very major economic challenge that we need to be able to solve. In the past weeks and in the coming weeks, we are working assiduously to relook at the budget, basically to reprioritize it, to refocus it, to reorder it, to take into consideration the current challenges facing us. We need to do this to give us the best chance of stimulating the economy and ensuring that the response, the post-COVID response of the economy will be strong and will be enduring. So in that refocusing of the budget, we'll be looking at things around employment, things around food security, things around pushing income of the citizens forward, and many other responses which are in the works that will help us respond deliberately and accurately to the challenges that we face. In line with our direction and our philosophy to ensure we run a government that is participatory and that ensures citizens' engagement, Mr. Governor has directed that we engage very actively various stakeholders, people groups, citizens around various sectors, people in the marketplace, engage them very actively, and this process is going on right now, basically to articulate correctly the right sets of responses that we would deploy in Lagos State. Now, we'd like to assure you that it's our firm belief that it is our goal and our belief that if we engage the capacity of Lagosians, we will definitely come out with solutions, right, that gives us a best chance, as you have probably observed in the past weeks. As we pass through these headwinds, what government does is also as important to what the citizens and the people of Lagos will do economically. So we encourage citizens that as the headwinds come and we pass through it, we should remain strong. We should refrain from panic buying. We should ensure we buy only things that are essential. We need to tighten our belt and spend wisely. We need to ensure that our investments are liquid. We need to also insure ourselves from risk and ensure we pay our insurance, our health insurance, and ensure that we also take very good care of our neighbors. Because one of the things Mr. Governor had said during the budget speech is that we need to consider and encourage very seriously our idea of communal living, which is why our stay-at-home advisory and instruction, we believe we will take care and obey and observe it very seriously. It's important also that we take the opportunity for economic planning to begin as soon as we have the opportunities to register as residents of Lagos, because this will help us plan better and help us respond. So whenever you see LASRA, please do register and show us that you are a resident of Lagos. Also, our social net initiative, SOKU, will be coming around from time to time. Please cooperate with them and ensure we have you registered so that we are able to reach you very easily as and when it's due and when we need to respond to you. The truth is that if we do not know you, then it is difficult to plan for you. So we'll encourage all Lagosians to get registered with LASRA, to get registered with our social net scheme if as appropriate. And we'd like to encourage you that we are doing everything that needs to be done and engaging actively to come out with economic plans and stimuli that will ensure that the economy remains strong and is able to bounce back to levels where it's expected to be as soon as these headwinds begin to subside. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'll call on the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Dr. Rabi Olowo, to also step forward and brief us.
Yeah, thank you very much. From the Ministry of Finance, as we are all aware, the current global health crisis is even more of an economic crisis. And Lagos State, being the economic capital of Nigeria, is the epicenter of this very virus we're talking about. So a lot of things has been done. From the Ministry of Finance perspective, I'm going to break down what we've been doing or our intervention in about 4 or 5 categories. We are responsible for revenue management, we are responsible for expenditure management, we are responsible for debt management, we are responsible for investment management, and of course we are responsible for governance. So from a revenue perspective, as we'll all expect, this of course will have a very huge shock on the government's revenue as businesses are under economic freeze, supply chain is being hindered. So to say, businesses are underperforming, and as a direct result, government's revenue is expected to dwindle. How are we managing this? From a Nigerian perspective, we are the only state who has more than 3/4 of its revenue coming from internally generated revenue, not just depending on the federal transfers. So with this, we are able to manage our expectation, we are able to manage our assumptions, and we are responding to those assumptions on a day-by-day basis. The Finance Leadership Council meets every day to see these assumptions and make it as flexible as possible in ensuring that at any point in time, our revenue is managed in a way that we can respond to our obligation. The second line I'd like to talk about is on expenditure management. If you cannot manage your revenue, of course, you should be able to manage your expenditure. And as the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning had said, we are in the motion of reprioritizing our expenditures, be it capital, be it recurring. So in that way, we'll be able to only make spends or reasonable expenditure that mirrors the revenue that is coming to the state. And that's where the revenue and expenditure platform is able to meet at a comfortable middle. And of course, on debt management. If you listen to the Honorable Minister of Finance some 2 days ago, they are talking to the World Bank, they are talking to the IMF, they are talking to multilateral organizations in terms of how they can work out some moratorium on principal and interest repayment, especially on loans that are outside of internal, that's external loans, and of course loans from the CBN. So in that way, we are also exploring debt renegotiation strategies, even with our internal loans, to ensure that our revenue and expenditure benchmark is able to really fuel the repayments of this debt. But as it is today, I can tell you that all is looking good because these are things that we measure on a day-to-day basis. I'll go straight to investment management. Investment is also a big source of income for the state, and this area is an area where we are very, very proactive at in ensuring that maximum return on investment comes from all our investment assets. I'll talk also on governance and reporting, and I will scale this down to the donation. Just like you would have heard and know, Lagos State currently today enjoy a lot of goodwill from individuals, from corporates, and even governments outside of this subnational, whereby people have supported us. They've recognized the performance of Mr. Governor in terms of how he has shown leadership and responded to managing this very, very global health pandemic that is ravaging everywhere in the world, and of course Lagos. So many people have shown us goodwill and have continued to make donations. And we have went ahead to open dedicated accounts to manage these donations. So at every point in time, we know how much is coming in into those dedicated accounts, and we are taking account of that. At the end of the day, just that it's too early for us to start making, pronouncements about how much we've received or who has donated. But at the end of the day, we'll be able to show governance in terms of coming out and telling everybody how this went, who donated, how much came out, and what the money is being able to use. But what I can tell you today is that the monies being received as donation follows a governance pattern, and it will be used justifiably. I will talk also a little bit about the fiscal stimulus that the government is currently undertaking. We all know about the food bag program, making sure that as we tell people to sit at home, as we tell people to observe the stay-at-home lockdown, that we are able to provide, especially the poorest of the poor, people who are vulnerable, people who are old. So part of the monies that we collect in donations have been channeled towards ensuring that we take food bag stimulus to people who are mostly in need of it. I'll also talk about a very important fiscal stimulus that the state has actually sponsored, which is directly targeted towards small, medium-scale enterprises. For those who have loans currently running with the LASG, that's the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, the Lagos State government have given 3 months moratorium to start with for principal and interest in ensuring that these small businesses who are mostly affected by this current global health economic crisis is not that their pressure is able to be minimized as much as possible. My final thought is that be it individual, be it big and small enterprises, will all be affected in one way or the other. But at the end of the day, this is the time for us to show strength. This is the time for us to show purpose in terms of really looking at where this thing is going. And at the end of the day, research shows that quite a number of businesses will be adversely affected, especially the small business. But the reverse side is that when things like this come, there will be new opportunities that will be able to come up. So I want to implore every small business holders, watching us today, that look out for the new opportunities. As businesses are changing their operating models, now there are no physical meetings anymore. People are doing meetings on Zoom, they are doing meetings on Microsoft Teams, and things like that. So there will be new opportunities where businesses can tap into, and that will create a whole new level of opportunity post-COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, I'm going to call all of us we live in the environment, and it is our responsibility to ensure that this environment remains sustainable. So I'm going to call the Honorable Commissioner for the Environment, Honorable Tunji Bello, to address us.
Good afternoon, gentlemen of the press, and thank you for my colleagues through that process. In addition to that, we have also asked some of our agencies like LASEPA, LASWAMO to complement the effort in areas of lockdown. We ensure that the nightclubs and several entertainment places do not operate, and so on. LASEPA has been doing that, and the LASWAMO, that's Lagos State Waste Management. So these are some of the things that we are doing to complement what the Ministry of Health is doing, because it is very, very important that as Ministry of Health has done a tremendous work for us in trying to ensure that this thing is combated and so on. We need to seriously ensure prevention in several areas, and that is why we have to LOMA, the Office of Drainage Services, LASEPA, everybody, we have to put them to task to ensure that they properly do normal cleaning and ensure that Lagos is free of any of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, to show that the Lagos State government is also mindful of our young ones, the adolescents, and the children who do not have the opportunity of being in school presently, the Ministry of Education is also on top of the game. So I'm going to invite the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, to tell us what the ministry is doing at this point in time.
Good afternoon, my colleagues and gentlemen of the press. Thank you very much for having me. I think when the lockdown first started, our first thought was, how would our children keep learning? We were very worried about the inevitable learning slide that would occur when they are at home and not sufficiently occupied. And so we started to wonder about the best way to reach them. There were many options. There was the internet. Many people gave us e-solutions. But we found that majority of our students have inadequate, little or no access to the internet, but they would have access to mass media such as radio and television. And so we asked radio stations and television stations, some of who are here, to support us in continuing to teach over this period, no matter how long it is. And one or two stations came to our support, gave us airtime, and we started classes about 2 weeks ago. We started with SS3 because we wanted them to revise for WAEC, and so we picked the nine subjects, some because every student does that, and some because students have a lot of difficulty managing those subjects. And we had our teachers rehearse, prepare, and deliver these lessons, and we're very glad to say that the reaction has really been wonderful. They've been playing on Wazobia TV now every day. And on Friday, we have panel discussions where our teachers actually sit at the panel. Right now, because we are not going out, online, of course, and children throw in their questions. I think the last Friday, there were about 1,000 responses on WhatsApp to the panel discussion. And I myself, just before I came here, I was on TV, I was on radio, and talking about the initiative. And apart from that, we have also started classes for our GSS3s, that is GSS 1 to 3. This is happening on Niger FM 102.7, and we are working in conjunction with South Saharan Social Development Organization. They've given us their material, and our teachers too have adapted it to our own curriculum and to our own methodologies, and this is also going on online. So we are reasonably certain that our children are learning at home. And apart from those two, for our primary school students too, we have programs on Lagos 107.5, we have Kokoka and Labeigi Urumbu, and these are still going on because, you know, at that age we have to make learning fun. We can't make it too serious. And also right now as I speak, we are not relenting. We keep on asking for support, and we are in advanced talks with the television station that has agreed to give us slots every day, and there we are going to work on the co-curricular subjects. We don't want it to be all the serious subjects like biology, maths, and so on. So there we'll have things like motivational speech, arts and crafts, a bit of STEM education, how to build a robot online, and so on. So that's the first thing that we are doing. And I must say that we've got a lot of support. We are also concerned about moving our children to e-learning, and we are cognizant of the fact that they may or may not have access to devices. And therefore, we've entered into a very, very exciting collaboration with First Bank to provide 1 million devices for students. We are working actually with a company called Rodocate, and they are providing the device. The device has the Nigerian curriculum on it. It has tests and quizzes, and I'm glad to also say that MTN has also given us airtime on these devices. First Bank has set the ball rolling. We are trying to ask the public to support us in providing these devices. Well, we ourselves, of course, will fund some of it. And what the First Bank has set the ball rolling with 20,000 PCs. EdFin, Microfinance Bank, has also given us devices for our teachers. And so we are reasonably, and we are now looking for managing the logistics of getting the devices to the students. But this means that they too will be able to work on their laptops. So that's what we are doing during this period, ensuring that the learning continues. And of course, we have to start thinking about the future, because one thing is sure, that we all know from this pandemic, is that life is not going to be the same again. And so because it's not going to be the same, we have started thinking about post-COVID, and we are doing things like scenario analysis. What is the most likely scenario? What is the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And how do we react to all these scenarios? But one thing is certain, that we really, really have to move a lot of the things that we do online, and we do have to engage more seriously with the technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next, the Honorable Commissioner for Youth and Social Development, Honorable Shegun Daudu, to address us.
Good afternoon, gentlemen of the press. Good afternoon, my colleagues. First of all, we all know that our youth are very active, majority of this population, and we know that the stay-at-home affects them a lot. They all want to be out there doing one thing or the other, but we have continuously engaged them to ensure that they obey the directives of the government in terms of social distancing and staying at home. Of course, we had to close down all sporting activities in the state, because we cannot afford to have people infected at this time, at this point in time. So they are much affected, but we have continuously, through different fora, engaged them, and we'll continue to engage them, to talk to them, to make them understand that it is in their own interest, for the safety of life of everybody, for them to obey this directive of government. We know it is not easy for them, so we make sure we continue to do that on a daily basis. Some of them are part of the volunteers in these different efforts of distributing relief packages from different local governments and through the Ministry of Agriculture. Also, in terms of our correctional centers, we have various correctional centers across the state for boys, for girls, junior ones and senior ones. We've made arrangements for them to sanitize the place. We fumigated the centers. We have centers in Oregun, Idiaraba, Surulere, Yaba, and so on. And we've restricted inflow of people coming into the centers for the time being. We're making arrangements, and arrangements are being made right now through with the collaboration and support of Ministry of Agriculture to provide food and necessary facilities for them there. They are not lacking at the moment. We continuously monitor them on a daily basis to ensure that all their needs are taken care of. And also, we have our various rehabilitation centers. The Rehabilitation Center for Mentally Challenged in Majidun, the one in Isheri, and the Rehabilitation Center for Persons with Disabilities at Owuchu in Ikorodu. We monitor them on a daily basis. We provided medical facilities for them, as well as sanitize the place, fumigate the place as well with active support of Ministry of Environment, and we continuously monitor the activities. The same goes to our various orphanages, our motherless babies home, homes for children with special needs. And of course, we have about 50 private registered orphanages in Lagos State. We monitor them on a daily basis as well to make sure their needs are taken care of, to ensure that the children in those centers are not lacking and they're being well taken care of. Our officers go there on a regular basis and communicate with those in charge of the place to ensure that we give them all their needs, all they need in this period, during this period. Of course, we also, because we know a lot of children are at home now with their families, with their parents, and we know children can be harmful. And we continuously monitor the activities and continue to inform their parents against child abuse. Child abuse is against the law in Lagos State, and we make sure every time we continue to send messages out to let them know that they should not abuse their children. And of course, the issue of domestic violence as well and sexual violence is there as well. We send messages around, we monitor we have various monitoring team who does that on a regular basis, and any report that we've got, we swing into action immediately. And our rescue team, who rescue children, destitute, beggars on the street, are also in place. A few days ago, we had to rescue a baby who was abandoned at Select Bus Stop pedestrian bridge. The child, the few months old baby was rescued by us. We've taken the child to hospital for treatment, and one or two others are in our centers. We're taking good care of them, and we continue to do so during and after this pandemic. Also, as well, we'll continue to monitor the activities of our youth. We know they are the ones that are very eager to be out there, and it is very important for us and for them to stay indoors. We'll continue to do so, and we'll do so on a regular basis, directly and through different other forums, through different voluntary youth organizations, and and other people as well. The press as well will always send messages to them, and we continue to do that to make sure that they don't go out there to go and play football, to do everything, because mingling together is not good for them. We need social distances. We need for them to take care of their health for now, not to infect anybody and not to get infected as well. So we continue to monitor their activities and to send messages out to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me now invite the Honorable Commissioner for Home Affairs and the person of Prince Anofi Elegushi to please step forward.
Good afternoon. Honorable colleagues here present, gentlemen of the press. Part of our responsibility at the Ministry of Home Affairs is to oversee and monitor and also manage the activities of our religious houses, and also to interface with the religious leaders. And on the part of the ministry, on this issue of COVID-19, we've called a series of meetings. We've engaged our religious leaders. At the start, we called a meeting. That was on the 3rd of March. We organized a sensitization program for all our religious leaders in the state through the NIREC. NIREC means Nigeria Interreligious Council. At the meeting, speakers were drawn from various critical MDAs like Ministry of Health, Environment, and all our safety sectors. So we called them to come down and explain in details all issues surrounding this pandemic disease. When we noticed that it's very obvious that a decision must be taken to curb the spread of this COVID-19, we called an emergency meeting of all religious leaders, and that was on the 18th of March 2020. And at that meeting, we let them know how important they are in achieving the social distancing we are talking about. And at that meeting, we agreed to suspend all congregational gathering of over 50. Then, immediately after that meeting, we had our press conference. We addressed the press on our decision. And at that meeting, we also inaugurate a committee of both Christian and Muslim, and then personnel from the ministry to monitor the activities of the religious houses and also to monitor the level of compliance. So, and in view of to review as event unfold then. So after the press conference of our Mr. Governor, that was on the 24th of March, I think so. Yeah. As a follow-up to that, to the directive of Mr. Governor, we called another emergency meeting of our religious leaders to let them know the decision of the government as regards to number of people that can congregate at the same time. Then we said it should be 20. But fortunately for us, for the government at that meeting, the religious leader resolved that it should be 0 instead of talking about 20. So knowing fully well that at both the mosques and the church and our churches, the number of people they pull together for their worships. So we continue monitoring them as part of our responsibility. We had series of meetings continuously with all our religious leaders. We also, in the area of prayers, as our ministry implies, is a prayer ministry. Through the Muslim and the Christian, we've engaged in series of prayers, but always observing the social distancing. So, since the pronouncement of the present lockdown, the compliance of our religious houses is still very stable at 100%. Only in Agege at Mashalashi Alaja that we had issues, and immediately the state government moved in and sealed up that mosque. And since then, we've been, consulting most of our religious leaders, and I want to say that despite the fact that worshiping is very obligatory, as we all know, is not optional to some people, but they still stand by us. They stood by us, most especially in this at this time of COVID-19. They adhere to all the rules and regulation of the state government on the restriction. So prayer is key, as we said. The state government
and the person of Prince Anofi Elegushi to please step forward.
Good afternoon. Honorable colleagues here present, gentlemen of the press. Part of our responsibility at the Ministry of Home Affairs is to oversee and monitor and also manage the activities of our religious houses, and also to interface with the religious leaders. And on the part of the ministry, on this issue of COVID-19, we've called series of meetings. We've engaged our religious leaders. At the start, we called a meeting. That was on the 3rd of March. We organized a sensitization program for all our religious leaders in the state through the NIREC. NIREC means Nigeria Interreligious Council. At the meeting, speakers were drawn from various critical MDAs like Ministry of Health, Environment, and all our safety sectors. So we called them to come down and explain in details all issues surrounding this pandemic disease.
when we noticed that it's very obvious that a decision must be taken to curb the spread of this COVID-19, we called an emergency meeting of all religious leaders, and that was on the 18th of March 2020. And at that meeting, we let them know how important they are in achieving the social distancing we are talking about. And at that meeting, we agreed to suspend all congregational gathering of over 50. Then, immediately after that meeting, we had our press conference. We addressed the press on our decision. And at that meeting, we also inaugurate a committee of both Christian and Muslim, and then personnel from the ministry to monitor the activities of the religious houses, and also to monitor the level of compliance. So, and in view of to review as event unfold then. So after the press conference of our Mr. Governor, that was on the 24th of March, I think so. Yeah. As a follow-up to that, to the directive of Mr. Governor, we called another emergency meeting of our religious leaders to let them know the decision of the government as regards to number of people that can congregate at the same time. Then we said it should be 20. But fortunately for us, for the government at that meeting, the religious leader resolved that it should be 0 instead of talking about 20. So knowing fully well that at both the mosques and the church and our churches, the number of people they pull together for their worships. So we continue monitoring them as part of our responsibility. We had series of meetings continuously with all our religious leaders. We also, in the area of prayers, as our ministry implies, is a prayer ministry. Through the Muslim and the Christian, we've engaged in series of prayers, but always observing the social distancing. So, since the pronouncement of the present lockdown, the compliance of our religious houses is still very stable at 100%. Only in Agege at Mashalashi Alaja that we had issues, and immediately the state government moved in and sealed up that mosque. And since then, we've been, consulting most of our religious leaders, and I want to say that despite the fact that worshiping is very obligatory, as we all know, is not optional to some people, but they still stand by us. They stood by us, most especially in this at this time of COVID-19. They adhere to all the rules and regulation of the state government on the restriction. So prayer is key, as we said. The state government have made a lot of effort, and I will also use this opportunity to employ everybody, all Lagosians, to continue praying for the state, continue praying for all our health workers and other critical personnel that are working both day and night to ensure that COVID-19, departed our state. Through the Ministry of Environment, all our churches, our major, big churches and mosques have been sanitized. We've been there to disinfect all our major mosques and churches. So with this, I think in the area of our religious houses, we are good. The compliance is very, very okay, and they complied very well. So I'm using this opportunity again to say a very big thank you to them, and also to keep it up, because COVID is still around. It's still very much around. So we must put all efforts together, synergize to make sure that we put COVID-19 out of, not even out of Lagos alone, but out of Nigeria. So I want to still say that social distancing is still the best, the cheapest method of curbing the spread of COVID-19. So once again, I want to say a very big thank you to members of the press for, since we started this struggle with COVID-19, you've been very much with us, supporting us. Thank you so much. I think that's all for Ministry of Home Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we will invite the Honorable Commissioner for Local Government and Community Affairs in the person of Dr. Wale Ahmed to step forward.
Good afternoon, my colleagues in the Cabinet of Lagos State. Good afternoon, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Well, from the Ministry of Local Government, immediately the issue of COVID-19 became reality, even before it got to the extent of instituting a lockdown. We called a meeting of all the medical officers of health in each and every of the 57 local government and local council development areas, and all the community development associations. We have about 3,900 of them in Lagos State, and the community development councils. And we brought in the Honorable Commissioner for Health to address them. Mr. Governor himself was present that day, and also the local government chairmen were there. And the idea then was for the Honorable Commissioner for Health to tell these people at the grassroots, representatives of the grassroots, about the disease, how it is transmitted, what measures to take to avoid or to prevent transmission, and all that. So we started under Mr. Governor as incident commander very, very early, and that time it was advocacy, sensitization, and enlightenment. I thank all my colleagues here for all the background they have already given. In each local government, we have environmental health officers that are our staff of Lagos State government. They are there in each and every of our local government. So Mr. Governor directed that we use this structure to carry out decontamination in all nooks and crannies of Lagos State, starting first of all with all public places, major highways, streets, schools, bus stops, markets, parks, and our health facilities. This is one of the so many ways, and this is one of the so many efforts that the government of Lagos State is putting in place to try to combat the disease. I would say that is going on right now. The Mr. Governor has provided 200 of these motorized disinfectants, the required chemicals, the required wares in terms of personal protective equipment to all the 57 local government and local council development areas. So they have the tools to work with. And I'm happy to report to you that they are even enthusiastic about it, both the local government chairman and the environmental health officers. And I want to thank the Ministry of Environment for joining us in this drive, so that because they have been providing guidelines what exactly the kind of chemical to use and all that, but we have used the structures we have in place. We believe that this statewide activity, regardless of the cost and the man-hour it takes, if it has saved just one life, it is worth it. And I want to believe it has done much more than that. In terms of relief package to our people, all local government chairmen have also started doing it. I will leave that for Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture to talk about later, but local government chairmen are also doing it with some assistance from the state. So I only want to tell Lagosians, or to reiterate, that this government means well, this governor means well. So I want to urge everybody to please cooperate with government and believe that whatever directive comes from Mr. Governor and the government of Lagos State is in the best interest of all Lagosians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I'm going to invite the Honourable Commissioner for Agriculture, Prince Bola, to address us.
Honorable colleagues, gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. In the last 13 days, a lot has come out of the Ministry of Agriculture. On the 27th of March 2020, the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Olushola, flagged off the economic stimulus in the form of emergency food response. This is a way of providing a social safety net for the vulnerable people in our state. At the Ministry of Agriculture and at the ESCO Executive Council, we all knew that after the Edge Frontier challenge that we are going to face with the COVID-19, as government is providing healthy lives and good well-being to the citizens, we knew, we did a forecast that the next frontier will be the food security challenge. That is exactly what happened. Globally, the world is observing a lockdown. If we don't have opportunity to go to farms, if the supply chains of food have been disrupted, definitely there will be a major food supply challenge. In responding to that, the Executive Council decided that before the lockdown of Lagos or Nigeria should arise, we should be proactive. And that is exactly what we did in Lagos. we were proactive, and we decided that we must reach out to the citizens. Who are these citizens? The vulnerable people in our society, the physically challenged, the communities that are less privileged. We all know where those communities are. We decided that at the first instance, we should look at the first 200,000 households. We all know that the population of Lagos is over 22 million. Can the state government feed the entire 24 million population? I leave you with the answer. What we decided was that when we start with 200,000 households, with the assumption that one household will be mother, father, and 4 children, multiply that by 200,000, that will give us 1.2 million people, average. So, we decided that what are we going to give to Lagosians? What kind of palliative, food palliative are we going to give handouts? What are the reliefs? We also agreed that we should go in the line of dry ration. Dry ration by grains, rice, gari, and beans. Then we also added loaves of bread. We also assumed that the portion or the package that we are going to give each household should last 14 days, without us knowing that even the federal government was going to lock down the entire state. That affected the supply chain, as I mentioned. According to the World Food Program, World Food Program is the international standard that is being deployed in the crisis when you have a humanitarian crisis globally. It is based on that we came up with the 5 kg of rice, 5 kg of gari, and 3 kg of beans, as beans serving as the protein component of the food. At the end of the 11th day, the ministry, in close collaboration with other MDAs, local governments, home affairs, finance, civic engagement, PSO, that is the head of service, and even some other agencies, LASTRA, that is Lagos State Resident Registration Agency, we decided that the best model of distributing of the food will be through the community development associations and councillors. In Lagos, there are 3,900 community development associations. 3,900 community development associations. Our councillors, there are 377 because there are 377 wards. And LAREC, that is the religious bodies. We believe that if we use the umbrella of CDA, the umbrella of religious bodies, and our councillors, we should be able to get to the real people, the vulnerable people in our society. Distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, 102,000 households, starting from Ofinjango in Ekpe, Abomiti, Ekpe, Gberefu in Badagry, even in the riverine area, Irewe, Ojo, Ijagemo, Ojo, Ise, Ibejuleki. If you go to all those places, aside from the metropolis, in Lagos metropolis, a lot of households have benefited from the packages. I want to, the case of Mrs. Adeyemo Ogunshola from Surulere is very instructive, and I want to quote her. The package came on my 65th birthday. I was surprised when they came to my doorstep without having to struggle for it. It's one of the testimonies that we see that is also giving us the urge, it's giving us inspiration to continue. Distinguished honorable commissioners, gentlemen of the press, we covered 20 local governments and 37 SCDAs in 11 days, and we distributed 102,000 food packages. It's also important to break what the economics of it, because a lot of us may not understand. I want us to understand the economics of it. For rice, 50 kg rice, we bought 10,100 bags of 50 kg rice, and that is exactly what we distributed. For Gary, 5,900 bags, of which 75 kg, some 100 kg of rice, of Gary. For beans, 3,955 bags of 100 kg each. For bread, 187,000 loaves of 300 bread each. And for tomato paste, 273,000 sachets. Aside from the packaging materials that we got. That's just a bit of the economics of it. Following the conclusion of the first half of the first phase, a bit of narrative came up with some people using social media to say it didn't get to us. I want to let us know that as a government, as a listening government, the figure and the people that did that, their numbers are insignificant statistically, considering the people, the households that were touched. Gentlemen of the press, in the course of the first 11 days, the agency of government, LASG, sent out messages to 191,000 senior people in our society, that is, people that are above 60 years of age. Over 25,000 of them responded. That we asked them whether they will have interest in the food package. 25,000 of them responded with a yes. That made us to come up with a new strategy, a reform strategy, so that we can expand, because we are more like expanded the scope. We can expand the scope and even the reach. As of yesterday and today, we have about 4 or 5 agencies of government, starting with LASMA. There is no traffic now. We have our LASMA officers. They are across 16 locations, 16 different local government and SCDAs. If we calculate, I'll let you have the figure. And neighborhood watch officers. We also have civil society organizations, volunteer groups that are working in close collaboration with us. After 3 days of, after like 16 hours of brainstorming sessions, we came up that we are going to deploy those officers. Neighborhood watch undisputedly understand the local areas, they have the local knowledge, and they are in the grassroots. So also LASMA. Then we have some volunteer groups that are resident within those areas that we have started with. As a matter of fact, as that by the end of today, almost 11,000 households will be touched. That is, they will be handed over, they will be given their packages. And our target is 25,000. Gentlemen of the press, our target is to ensure that we get to that 200,000 households. We have already done 102,000. And as of today, yesterday and today, we are reaching out to other people. The people living with disability, they are collecting their packages. Seniors in our societies are also receiving their packages. As a matter of fact, Mr. Olanrewaju of 4 Raji Balogun Street in Nisheri got his package. Pa Ama Ogedengbe of Idowu Adeniji Street, Ekoro, Agbado, Keodo, SCD also collected their packages. This is what we have started, and I want to assure Lagosians, these are palliatives. We are at the first instance reaching out to 200,000 households. Also want to let you know, private corporate organizations and well-meaning Lagosians have also donated food items. Those food items will be used in the second phase. So I want to assure Lagosians, the time to be calm is now. We are coming. Opportunity for us to also see that this is a listening government, and we want to assure you that when it comes to food security, we will always be there for you. Aside from the emergency food response, you remember I said the emergency food response is for the vulnerable people, the less privileged, the catchment communities that are in more like in the informal sector. I would not want to label them any other name. We also have the neighborhood food market, what we call like a makeshift market or emergency food market. Those emergency food markets are meant to support households that want to pick up more groceries. In Lagos, there are 27 of them. They are scattered across the entire entire state, and they are meant to cushion the economic impact that the lockdown has triggered. As of today, 750 farmers are in those markets, working in collaboration with our food merchants. Only today alone, over 25,000 customers have visited 11 of our 27 markets as at 1 p.m. Don't forget, we started on the 29th of March. The second edition was on the 3rd of April. And today's edition is what we regard as the Easter edition, the 9th of April. It is also important to let us see the economics of the market, economics of the palliatives. $600 individuals were given employment in our production centers. So in the last 2 weeks, 600 direct jobs have been created. What about those that are in the farm? Because we get Lagos is, in terms of food self-sufficiency, we are 18% in terms of food self-sufficiency. So we have also patronized other states. We have boosted the economy of states like Ogun State, Oyo State, Kwara State, Nasarawa State, Kano State, Benue, Kaduna, and so many other states where we get those food items from. So that is the economics of the emergency food market that we have created. 103 trucks in the last 2 days, in the last 2 weeks, have been engaged. Truck drivers and their motorboys. Gentlemen of the press, in our food market, because of social distances, we are in compliance. We are working with our Ministry of Health. Before you enter our market, we ensure that you wash your hands. We also ensure that we check your temperature, and we ensure the social distancing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a positive opportunity for a lot of Lagosians, and I pray and hope that the COVID-19 will come to an end very soon. We all know, based on the data and the information we got, that the lockdown is making the curve to come down, to flatten a bit. Distinguished guests, honorable commissioners, I want to also let us know, we have created call centers. We have one call center that takes care of all the local governments. If the food package does not get to you, please call any of these numbers. We have our officers there. They work almost on a 12-hour basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, food is health, and food is wealth. And that brings us to the Ministry of Health. You will agree with me that the Ministry of Health and its agencies have been on top of the game, and every day the Honorable Commissioner gives us an update. So, but today we feel that Lagosians should know all that the state government has been doing behind the scene. So on that note, I now want to invite the Honorable Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, to give us the health update.
Good afternoon, colleagues, honorable members, members of the press, Lagosians. I first of all just want to say that the response has been a multi-sectorial response. Even though I brief you, I try to brief you every day. Several members of the cabinet are working diligently in the background, supporting the Ministry of Health in all its facets and ensuring that the impact of this outbreak is softened. And as you can see from our data, which we publish from time to time, we always talk about the curve, but essentially, if I put it in simple terms, we're only seeing between 5 and 10 new cases every day, which suggests that the outbreak is seemingly under control in Lagos. If it was out of control, we would be seeing increasing numbers of cases on a daily basis. So for example, we might see 10 today, 15 tomorrow, 20 the day after. So whatever we're doing in Lagos is working. We have several strategies that we've deployed. And let me remind Lagosians that Lagos has been preparing for this event for 5 years. After the Ebola outbreak in 2014, we realized where our weaknesses are in terms of resilience to an outbreak situation caused by an extremely contagious pathogen. And we knew that we had to strengthen certain structures and build certain expertise. We've been doing that quietly and diligently with the support of multiple ministries. My predecessor has been establishing a foundation which I have just acquired and further consolidated. So we knew that this kind of event was going to happen. We just didn't know when. And when we saw the outbreak creeping around the world, we knew that this was the time. And so we hastened our response and preparedness. And if you recall, we launched the incident command structure 1 month before our first case hit our shores. That is a mark of the proactiveness of the Lagos State government and its ability to look into the future and prepare and improve our resilience to these kinds of shocks. The data we have at the moment, we have had a total of 145 confirmed cases in Lagos State. We have discharged 32, completely recovered. We're discharging 7 more today, which will be 39 in total. We have had 2 deaths in Lagos State, but not in our facilities. So far, we have had 100% recovery from the cases that we have admitted at our state facilities. Of importance is our capacity to test. We have in Lagos State now 3 independent testing facilities. The test for COVID-19 is a very complicated test, and it is performed in very sophisticated laboratories. In the state, we have one of the most sophisticated laboratories in Africa. It is built through the collaboration of the Canadian government and the Lagos State government, and it has the capacity to carry out very advanced laboratory diagnosis, and also has one of the most sophisticated biobanks. At this facility, we are increasing our capacity to diagnose COVID-19 every day, and as we do that, we will also be able to increase our screening of vulnerable populations within the state. We have been increasing our bed capacity, our isolation bed capacity, which is different from a normal ward bed. An isolation facility is a very contained environment. It is only manned by specially trained staff. And right now we have 280 isolation beds. The current occupancy is about 100. So we have an excess of 180 isolation beds. We've started to increase our isolation centers. Our primary isolation center, where our center of excellence in infectious diseases is at the Yaba Mainland Hospital. We have just commissioned the Onikon Isolation Facility, courtesy of GTB Bank, which worked in collaboration with the Lagos State government. We just opened the Lagos University Teaching Hospital Isolation Facility in collaboration with the federal government. We are working very fast to commission the Bagada Isolation Facility, which is a very sophisticated 150-bed isolation facility. And we're working with the private sector to also develop another tented isolation at the Landmark location. Bagada and Landmark will be coming on stream next week, and that will further increase our isolation bed capacity to well over 300 and approaching 400. We have other plans in store as we watch the dimensions of this outbreak. In addition, we have 4 quarantine facilities. These are places where we hold persons who we believe may have been exposed and would like to remove them from community because they have a high index of suspicion. And these are facilities that we've rapidly converted into holding bays where we can keep people for a couple of days until we get the results of their tests. And if they're positive, they will go into one of our isolation facilities, and if they are negative, they will be discharged back into community. You may have heard that there are frequent excursions across the Nigeria Republic of Benin border. We have been able to intercept 3 such incursions, and right now as I speak, we have been able to meet and take into our care 67 Nigerians that have come from Côte d'Ivoire, and we've put them in one of our quarantine facilities in Badagry, and we're just about to receive another 27. The idea behind this is that we'll keep them for 14 days isolation. We will test them, and if they're positive, they'll move to one of our isolation wards, and if they're negative, we'll allow them to continue on their way to Osun State, which is where they originate from. The first batch of such that crossed the Nigerian border, we discovered that about 10% of them were positive for coronavirus. So this movement of people is an area that we are watching very closely to make sure that it does not increase our numbers of imported cases. We are often asked about research, about the use of certain drugs, about the use of rapid tests. I'd like to assure Lagosians that we have a very robust research strategy. We're going to be testing several of the drugs that you hear about, just to make sure that they actually add value to our treatment cases, and that we're not just following hearsay. It is important that we practice evidence-based medicine, and that these treatment protocols are indeed useful in our Lagosian populations. We will also be testing the accuracy of these rapid tests, because many of them have very low level of accuracy, and the consequences of using inaccurate tests could be quite serious. I'd like to reassure Lagosians that the incident commander, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is fully engaged. We communicate almost on the hour. He participates in several of our meetings, and he makes some very high-level decisions that are crucial to the implementation and the success of Lagos State's strategy against COVID-19. Once again, thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, the Honorable Commissioner for Health. In any engagement, there are 2 sides to the coin. And I want to recollect what people call the philosophy of the frog. And the philosophy is Bumi Buo. And what the government has done is to ensure that the state remains viable, that the state remain responsive, but on the other side, the government also expects certain obligation from members of the community. And that community engagement is what the state government will still want to have, though we are having it, but to talk about our role as residents and citizens of the state.
Good afternoon, honorable colleagues, gentlemen of the press. My colleagues, they have talked to you about what government has been doing since the inception of COVID-19 and our responsibility as a government to our citizens. But then our citizens equally have a responsibility as a citizen of Lagos and a citizen of Nigeria to make sure the rules and regulations that are laid down by the government that they are being followed. Yes, if you have, if you listen to all the MDSs, they have narrated each ministry what Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu had put in place through their ministries to do for Lagosians. But also, during these breakouts, we equally expected some responsibility or civic responsibilities from our citizens. One of the things that Office of Civic Engagement has been doing, we have been going into communities to sensitize, doing advocacy, and the enlightenment of our citizens on ways to curb COVID-19. One of the ways is, of course, like they have been saying, proper hand washing. If you have to sneeze, sneeze into your elbow. But one of the things that we notice as we do our community engagement is that people tend to wear gloves and they move around with that single glove. While you are wearing that glove, you're actually contaminating others, but maybe not yourself. So that means you might be spreading COVID-19 and other bacteria in the community. So we want to emphasize that please practice proper hand washing all the time. Use hand sanitizers if you must, maybe in between the hand washing. And most importantly, the lockdown that has been laid down both by the federal government and by the state government. Going out in the communities, we notice that a lot of people are not following that lockdown rules. They are not staying in their homes. They are still moving around, So if you continue to move around in the community and you continue to spread COVID-19, then our work will be fruitless. All the efforts of this administration of Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu will be for nothing. So we are calling on meaningful Lagosians. We are calling on both the formal and the informal sector, from the grassroots to the elites, to please continue to respect the lockdown rules that has been laid down by both the federal government and the state government, so that we can all together be our brother's keeper to make sure we don't continue to spread COVID-19. COVID-19 is not just in Lagos, it's not just in Nigeria, it's global. It's a pandemic. That means it's all over the world. And the only way they have been telling us from America to London, so however you want to say it, is to stay indoors, maintain social distance, at least 2 meters. If you don't have to go out, stay indoors. But there is a lockdown now in Lagos State. Please, please, please listen to the lockdown rules and stay indoors. Yes, we thank you for working with the government. Like I said, government cannot do it alone. Governance is two-way street. Government and the people and the government. They will meet halfway. So let's continue to meet halfway. Let's continue to listen to all the laid down rules and stay indoors. When it's time for us to come out, that means government through the Ministry of Health would have put down some guidelines. We'd have put down some guidelines to make sure we're actually safe to come out, to make sure the pandemic, will not continue in Lagos State, hence Nigeria. Also, I want to also use this opportunity to advise Lagosians, resident Lagosians, truly, when this lockdown is over, go to LASG, go and register for your LASG card. Because that is one of the ways you can actually benefit from the dividends of this government. Make sure you are properly registered, so that if you are doing anything through LASG, you can get that benefit. Once again, I want to thank you for your endurance. I want to thank you for your compliance. I want to thank you for being a good citizen. And Lagos State, being the center of excellence, through you, we continue to maintain that standard. Ìgbéga ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó, àjùmọ̀ṣe ni. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Members of the State Executive Council here present, gentlemen of the press, you will agree with me that it has been a worthwhile time spent, because the government has been able to communicate all that has been going on since the lockdown started. We'll just entertain one or two questions so that we can wrap this up. If there are, you need to step out here so that we can quickly. Yes, I have only one hand up. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. So we just take that and then the responses will come. So can we have the mic for them?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Alale Yusuf from Channels Television. I think this will go to environment, home affairs, and probably health. You say you sanitized major mosques and churches. Is there a plan to go around all the others, the minor ones? And if not, will it pose a problem when the lockdown ends? Secondly, is the LASRA database as it is now, of course, from what you said, not everybody has registered, but as it is, what percentage of people do you think it has covered? And can you deduce who are the vulnerable people from that database? Thank you.
Okay. My name is Ade Doja. I work with CVC News. First, to the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget. You said post-COVID-19, Lagos will be strong in terms of employment and food security. Can you shed more light on this? Employment in terms of what? And how are you going about the food security? Then Commissioner for Health. It has recently been confirmed in the US that COVID-19 can be transmitted through talking and breathing by some scientists. I would like to know if this is the time to compulsory masks, face mask wearing in public places. Then Commissioner for Health again. How are the bodies of those that died from COVID-19 buried? Commissioner for the Environment, Mr. Tunji Bello, please pardon me. I have a couple of questions here. Ramadan is around the corner, and I want to know, you know that this is the time Muslims congregate more than before. So what measures are you putting to check them? Then I've also noticed that during this time, the infrastructural work, road rehabilitation in the state has reduced. I mean, when is it going to get back, especially now that we have free roads? And then Commissioner for Local Government, Mr. Wale Ahmed, please, I want to know what method you're using to reach the grassroots. Are you speaking with them in their language? Are you using town crying sort of to reach them? And lastly, sorry, what is Lagos? Please, let me just ask this, please, let me just ask this. I want to know what Lagos is losing daily to this COVID-19. Thank you.
Yes, we'll take responses from the commissioners now. Commissioner for Economic Planning.
Thank you very much for that question. It's always a bother about how employment will be stimulated. Now, employment comes as a result of economic activities. Now, one of the things that COVID-19 has done across the world is to force a slowdown in economic activities by slowing down production in most of the productive capitals or productive centers of the world. The way we are responding in Lagos is that if you notice the way we had moved on COVID-19 was very methodical. And the idea was that we did not want to cut off completely the economic except we saw good reason to do so. And as we speak, the Commissioner for Agri just told us, right, that there are certain selective special markets going on. As we speak, we are making procurements, right, to ensure that food security is not compromised, at least even to the vulnerable, right, and the aged, you know, and we are working out all of this. What I have also said is that we are putting together a post-COVID-19 response and stimulation plan. Now, but in our style, and our style usually in Lagos, is that we always engage, we always encourage citizens' participation, and Mr. Governor has said we should put together stakeholders, and that work is going on right now, that would evaluate very critically together with economic planning as to how this entire impact that we're feeling will be re-engineered for improvement in production. So that's exactly what will happen. Now, right now, even during COVID-19, we have not ceased. So you will see the activities of the entire MDS come to play to ensure that things are still working in Lagos, to ensure that our business continuity plan is riding. And that's why we can still have ESCO using virtual means to continue to drive Lagos. That's why our mechanisms for approving things, expenditure, and approving transactions in Lagos is still on under a very special regime. Now, where we are going is to reorder the budget, refocus the budget, and in that refocusing, we are going to be looking at enterprise. We are going to be looking at small and medium-scale enterprises. We are going to be looking at outputs that have the capacity to generate employment quickly. And those are the things which will generate employment as soon as we have clarity in our space, clarity on the impact of COVID, and as soon as COVID begins to give us room to operate more actively. We'll be looking at sectors like agriculture, sectors like construction, sectors like things to empower knowledge, skills, and try and direct vocational impact to our people so that they can be useful to both themselves and to be useful to the society. We also said that our people should participate very actively in registering with LASRA. We also said they should also participate very actively in registering with the social net register. That will help us actually plan and know where our people are standing and how we intend to drive them back into employment. The Commissioner of Finance did talk about our involvement with our Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. We are going to be empowering them to intervene very directly in these particular sectors. So that's exactly how we would ensure that employment begins to come back, because all of the effect of a supply chain jam and a downward trajectory in production means that it's going to begin to affect employment and affect incomes. So this will restart very, very quickly. I think the Commissioner for Agriculture has spoken very strongly and profusely around what we are doing to ensure that food security is sustained. We are in the market as we speak, and we have significant plans in our back room to unleash on Lagos that will help sustain production and actually improve production post-COVID. Of course, it will not start from a peak from day one. It's going to ramp up gradually. What we are just doing is to ensure that we ramp up more quickly than slowly. Thank you very much.
Yes, Commissioner for Finance, then after Commissioner for Health.
So thank you very much. The question is, what is Lagos losing daily? So at this time, it might be a little bit premature to actually measure the true extent of the impact or the losses to the state. We are witnessing a twin shock. We're talking about the oil prices, decline, and also we're talking about the economic freeze that comes with COVID-19, because the distinguishing factor between what we are witnessing now and financial crisis, they are not the same at all. Businesses are not operating at full capacity, and what that means is that once the businesses are not operating at full capacity, they are not able to actually make the kind of profit or revenue that they would make, and that will inversely affect the revenue that government gets in taxes. The second thing is the huge expenditures that we make minute by minute, hour by hour, that have not been earlier envisaged. Even though the Commissioner for Health mentioned that we did plan or prepared for it, but we didn't know when exactly it will come. So in absolute terms, we are spending a lot into our response efforts in managing this particular pandemic that we never prepared for in monetary terms. Thank you.
So the question around masks is a question that is being debated heavily around the world. We've been doing extensive research on the topic, and I just want to elaborate 2 points. When you wear a mask, you're either wearing it for 2 reasons. Either you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to protect people around you if you have the infection. The only way you can protect yourself is to wear what we call an N95 mask, which is a sealed mask. It filters the air before you breathe it, and in the filtration process, you will protect yourself from breathing in air that has the virus in it. If you wear anything else but an N95, and you will know the difference between an N95 and an ordinary mask, the N95 fits your face completely, and it does not allow air to pass through the sides. If you're wearing anything else but an N95, another name for it is FFP3, then you are not protecting yourself from the environment, but rather you are reducing people around you from becoming infected by your droplets that you produce when you talk, when you cough, or when you sneeze. The consensus right now is not clear whether the entire community should be wearing masks, but we're getting closer to a decision, and I believe that Mr. Governor will make an announcement on this in the next few days. The masks that the population or the community can wear be locally made masks, but they themselves need to be made in a particular way, not just fabric and elastic and putting it on your face. There is a bit of a science to making hand masks, and we'd like to get that design accurate so that we can give you the correct design and the correct advice. On the issue of managing the deceased or people that die from COVID, even when you die from COVID, it doesn't mean the virus has died. The corpse is still infectious, and it needs to be handled in a particular way. So we have specialists in the Ministry of Health, in our Department of Environment, who are specially trained to manage and to prepare the bodies of people that have demised from COVID-19 in such a way that when we hand over these bodies to the families, that the family members are not at risk of being infected by their loved ones. By the time we hand them over to the families can bury them safely, or if you wish, we have a crematorium at the mainland hospital in Yaba, and some families may choose or opt to have the remains of their loved ones cremated, just like what we did during the Ebola outbreak. So there is a special way of handling the dead. It's not for unexperienced morticians. When anybody dies from COVID-19, the Ministry of Health is deployed to safely prepare the body for burial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Commissioner for the Environment.
Thank you very much. I would like to respond to 2 questions. First by Mary Alale Yusuf on and the question was, apart from the sanitization of mosques and churches, what are the other areas yet to be covered? We have spoken about the highways. We have several major highways, between 20 and 24 of them in Lagos, major highways, and these will still have to be fully sanitized. I know some of the local governments have touched several of them and so on, but you still need to take them at a stretch. I can give you an example from Moshalashi to Jokoro alone. That's a very long stretch. You can also pick from Jibowu to Ikorodu. That's a long stretch of an highway and so on, and that is a tax that must be taken seriously and so on, and several other areas. And as the fumigation exercise continues, I believe that as issues emerge, we will respond to them accordingly. The second question has to do with and they are in two parts. Ramadan. Ramadan is coming, and it's almost here, and so on. And we know that Ramadan is one of the fundamental pillars of Islam. And we know that we have to respond. I believe the Honorable Commissioner for Home Affairs is already in touch with our mosque and with our leaders of the Muslim leaders all over the state, engaging them, and I believe that they will be able to explain properly how they are going to congregate. But as long as we are still in this experiment and so on, a large congregation will not be allowed. I can take that, but I believe that through that consultation by the Honorable Commissioner for Home Affairs, they'll be able to come out specifically on how the prayer session will be handled. The last question has to do with the infrastructural works are being reduced. No, I do not disagree. I can speak for my colleague, the Honorable the Special Advisor Works. Works are going on in several places in Lagos, road works, they are going on, and they will still continue because they are racing against time. When we are already in the rainy season, and as the rain intensifies, we may have a problem of continuing some of those. That's why they have to accelerate those projects. And most of those projects are going well. And also, the dredging work by the Drainage Department of the Ministry of Environment has started. They started last weekend. They are covering several drainage channels across the state and so on. And work is already going on. As I'm speaking to you, works are already going on. So thank you very much.
Honorable Commissioner. Yes.
Thank you very much. I want to respond to the question from Adedoja, Channels TV, about the method used to reach, TVC rather. The method used to reach the grassroots is actually a command structure. Let me just briefly familiarize you. There are about 3,900 CDAs in Lagos. In each ward, there is a minimum of 1 CDA. There can be 10 in a particular ward, but no ward has less than 1. Every ward has 1, and there are 377 wards. So if we have 3,900 CDAs, it means you can just extrapolate. It means there are so many CDAs per ward in Lagos. From these CDAs, the chairman and the secretary of the CDAs in that ward will come together to form CDC. That is Community Development Council, still at the ward level. Then, those CDC in that local government, there will be one single CDC that will oversee all of them. Then, from that CDC in the local government, they select about 11 of them to form the State Community Development Advisory Council. And that has a chairman. So, to break it down for you, if I want to get across to all the CDAs in Lagos, I will just start by calling one man and pass the message. Promise you within the next 1 hour, all the 3,900 will get to know what we are talking about. That's about CDA. Then we have the 57 local government chairmen. I don't need to, say further on that. That is grassroots, and we can also pass messages through them. Then we have traditional rulers. So many of them and different grades. First class, second class, baales, and the rest. But there is a permanent chairman, and that's the Olowo Eko. And they also have an ESCO. So if I call our father the Olowo Eko and relate a message, somehow it will get to all traditional rulers, and traditional rulers have people that they are ruling over. So it will get to those people also. That's why I say it's a command structure. Talking about markets, we have President General of Market Men and Women Association. But in every local government, there is an Iyaloja General. And in every single market, there is an Iyaloja of that market. So if I call Mrs. Folashade Tinubu Ojo with due respect to her name, and I want to relate a message, if it's so urgent we can't call everybody to a meeting, I promise you the message will get to where it's supposed to get to. So I'm just trying to tell you that it's a command structure that the government has put in place. Some messages will get to the real grassroots within the next 5 minutes. If I just pick up a phone now. Thank you.
Well, distinguished members of the State Executive Council, gentlemen of the press, I believe that all that we have done today is to exhaust the subject matter of where we are, what the state government has been doing, and what the state government intends to do in ensuring that the economy of Lagos and the business and the life of Lagos continues after COVID-19. So on that note, on behalf of the Lagos State Government, and by extension, the Lagos State Ministry of Information and Strategy, ably led by the Honorable Commissioner, Honorable Benga Omotosho, I want to sincerely thank all members of the press for coming around today, because we are partners in progress to ensure that Lagosians are kept informed about where we are and where we are going. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much for coming, and we assure you of the openness of this government, and we know that at any point in time when we call you again, you will be there for us so that we'll continue the business of communicating. Thank you very much and good afternoon. Gentlemen of the press, just hold on for a brief meeting with us. Gentlemen of the press, just hold on for a brief meeting after this. Thank you very much.